It's official now. Elon Musk is in charge of Twitter. Why is that important? Darren Beattie is the founder of Revolver.news. And Darren, it's pretty important, isn't it?
It's potentially of civilizational importance. Elon Musk, I think, doesn't exaggerate when he describes Twitter as the global public square. So the prospect of free speech once again reigning on the global public square is of profound importance to everybody.
And it's funny because there's a lot of outcry. Employees at Twitter are screaming about it. They're upset. You're seeing a lot of people on social media and journalists, even people in the government who are very concerned and voicing their concerns. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think all Elon Musk has said is that he wants Twitter to be sort of an open platform for people to express their ideas. And people, this is where it really gets dangerous, people can see and hear various ideas without anyone intervening and saying, nope, 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 you can't see, you can't hear that. Why is that such a dangerous idea?
Well, because the current regime that we live in is extremely corrupt, and essentially it cannot coexist with free speech because it's built on so many lies that require censorship to keep the system sustainable. So in a way, I can't really blame the regime and its various functionaries for freaking out about the prospect of free speech coming onto Twitter. And it's not just the woke HR at Twitter. And I say I encourage Elon not to follow through with his plan to fire 70%. Based on conversations I've had, he needs to fire at least 80%. But it's not
just... Think big, Elon.
It's not just about the woke employees that we typically think about. Twitter is, as the global public square, it's ground zero for psychological influence operations conducted by all sorts of intelligence agencies, including and principally our own. And Revolver.news has gained quite a name for itself for exposing some of these operations, just one of which is called the Integrity Initiative, that came out in probably one of the greatest national security leaks since Snowden, that really illustrates the architecture of how the censorship works, who's involved, and just how deep it actually goes. And so Elon's going to not just make enemies of your, woke, Twitter HR people. He's potentially going to make very powerful enemies within the national security state itself. And that's why it's so complicated and interesting and dangerous, because in many ways, he gained his whole career, he owes to the national security state. And basically his designated role up to this point was glorified IT support for the regime. And now he's potentially challenging the power of the very regime that is responsible for his billions to a large degree. So he's in a very complicated, very dangerous position, but I think he's a very impressive individual. And if anyone can pull it off, he's one of the very few people on the planet who can do so.
Yeah, this is just fact, what you've laid out in terms of the censorship and the information operations. We know this. It's not even debatable. We know that during the COVID-19 pandemic and during the debate, what should have been a very public and robust debate over the vaccine mandates, we know that the White House picked up the phone and had social media companies censor, delete, and remove people and their voices from being heard. But let's go back to maybe not the original sin of Twitter, but probably the sin heard around the world. 2 weeks before the 2020 presidential election, and the New York Post publishes the Hunter Biden story, and universally across the board, every big tech company, Twitter leading the way, censors it, deletes it, keeps that story from being shared, keeps people from hearing true facts about this president and his son. And we know that was preempted, Darren Beattie, with phone calls from the FBI, from the Justice Department, telling all of these companies to be on the lookout for Russian disinformation.
I don't know how Elon will conduct himself on Twitter. That story remains to be told. I'm cautiously optimistic, but again, you never know how things play out until you step into the pain box. And Elon's just beginning to understand what that pain box means, and all of the levers that the regime has at its disposal in order to exert pressure on him. So I think that's very much still an open question. But the example that you give illustrates the civilizational importance because democracy is predicated on an informed citizenry. And if the citizens cannot be informed about something so basic to democratic functioning as a presidential election, we don't have a democracy in any meaningful sense. And people are not in a position to make important decisions on critical matters from elections to healthcare to a whole range of things. This can't happen if the global public square is subject to extreme censorship as it is
Let
at
me
present.
let me pull on some threads that you're dangling out there. Elon Musk, richest man in the world, incredibly influential, I think a brilliant individual, and quite an iconoclast. But let's face it, Tesla, the growth of Tesla, the electric car that he founded, it happened because he got a lot of government assistance. It was either
Right.
tax credits for electric cars or various other incentives from the government. SpaceX, the rocket company that he has, most of the income comes from contracts with the federal government. Are you saying that potentially the needs of maintaining his relationship with the American government and other governments around the world might be more pressing for Mr. Musk than to actually stay true to his word on keeping Twitter free and open?
Well, these are certainly significant levers that the regime has at its disposal. And again, I don't have tremendous insight into Elon's awareness of just how invested the national security state, the very national security state that he owes to a large degree to his success, is invested in maintaining censorship and influence operations on Twitter. And so ultimately, he's going to have to come to some type of understanding with the national security state on some kind of reasonable, maybe compromise, where now we have censorship at 85%. Maybe if Elon can move it from 85% to 50%, that's still a revolutionary change in a positive direction. And so we can't think of it as a binary. It's a very difficult, complicated, and dangerous arena that he just stepped into. And I don't know how prepared he is for what's about to come.
In our final minute here, Darren Beattie, to me, the biggest concern with the First Amendment and the censorship that we see on social media is not as much people not being able to speak, it's people not being able to hear. That's what they're really trying to control. Are you basically saying, succinctly, that the First Amendment and real free speech is a danger to the American government?
Absolutely. I think, I mean, in the most general sense, um, no regime is compatible with complete free speech. But I think we've reached such a stage where our leadership and is so corrupt and so incompetent that really the balance is in favor of opening up speech much more so than say would be necessary if things were actually more functional. And so I think we really need to move pretty radically in the direction of opening things up for real discourse. And at the very least, it would at least force the elites to be a little bit better, or at least to go through a little bit more effort in how they lie to us. Now their lies are so low effort and so blatant because they don't need anything more sophisticated because they just shut down anyone who disagrees.
Darren Beattie, founder of Revolver News. We're going to keep an eye on this, but hopefully Elon Musk will step up. Thanks for joining us. More to come on O'Connor tonight, unless we get censored.